seats and welcome our next speakers from Polkahaus.
Check, check, check. Hey guys. All right, let's get some energy in the room. It's kind of like, we're going to keep this short, get everyone to lunch, talking about communities in DotSama. Polkahaus, a little bit of background. We go to the next slide because I didn't get a clicker. I don't think I see anyone up there, so. Oh, perfect. Thank you. All right. Okay, so Polkahaus, how it started. Literally just a couple people that are actually in this room, Irvin over here, Tamara. We just really wanted a place to hang out and talk about Polkadot. This thing called Clubhouse was a thing about 2 years ago or something. We were on it. We would go into Bitcoin rooms, and then we'd come up on stage and say, hey, have you heard of this thing called Polkadot? And you guys probably know a couple Bitcoin maximalists. They weren't going to have that conversation in a Bitcoin room, so we basically said, let's start our own thing, and that's what we did. So we created Polkahaus. Is there a way to go back here? Yeah. We do know it's spelled incorrectly for those that are from here. We do know it's really hard to say for those that are from here because it's not the right way. But anyways, the hunger for information about Polkadot was there from the get-go. We grew really quickly, and we were just hanging out and talking. Peter Morick joined a couple of the early rooms. Dan Reeser came on, and then Hutch, and then a couple of the teams. I think Big Country was our first official room, and the community just grew organically. We really had no plans to become a community for the DotSama ecosystem. What we did find, though, is that it's actually a hard ecosystem to build a community around because some of the other layer 1 blockchains, you just build the project and you don't really need support from, in this case, DOT or KSM holders, right? But in DotSama, you can't really build a project on top of Polkadot or Kusama unless the community votes you in or you've got some pretty big investors that'll push you in. But irregardless, you still need support from the community. So you essentially have to build two communities. And we were literally watching that as we held some of our rooms with the projects that, some projects had smaller communities, some projects had larger communities, and we saw that just through the audience in our rooms, right? But it was actually really interesting because some of the projects that had larger communities were actually not going for a parachain slot, Remark being one of those. Some projects with a large community that did win a parachain slot also kind of didn't really do much afterwards, and then we started hearing from the community as well. And so it's just this really interesting dynamic that happens in DotSama. And although the crowd loan idea is great, it still makes the teams, it forces the teams to win a competition, and it distracts from development. And so it's going to push things to the right. And so just recognizing that and talking to your community around that is interesting because they don't hear that, and they see a roadmap. That roadmap gets pushed, and they should hear that. The other thing that's interesting is trying to think about XCM in the future and trying to get these projects to work together, right? The communities are in other blockchain ecosystems are kind of disparate, but in Polkadot we're kind of forced to have communities interact with one another, right? Like currently Karura and Kintsugi, right, are doing a lot of co-marketing because they're bridging their projects together in a certain way. But without the two communities knowing about one another, there's really it's really difficult for those projects to succeed because they depend on the other one to basically have any utility for their projects. So communities in DotSama are extremely complex to build, is kind of what I'm trying to say. And then add on top of that, what has already been mentioned several times during this conference is the lack of continual in-person events, whether it be through COVID or the fact that we were going through parachain slot auctions and all of that. It really made it difficult to build sustainable communities in the DotSama ecosystem. So props to the Hydra team. This is really well done. And I think, as Dan said, needed in the entire ecosystem. What we've done at Polkahaus, we really weren't, planning on becoming a thing in DotSama. We just wanted a place to hang out and talk about Polkadot. But then it turned into a thing, so then we might as well do something with it, right? So we've been thinking about how to throw fun events for the DotSama ecosystem. And so what we've done, this is an event that we had during ETH Denver, and we had it at the International Church of Cannabis, which is an actual thing. And you guys can see on the picture over there on your left, it's an interesting venue. But what we did is we partnered with people outside of the DotSama ecosystem, right? Because let's be honest, at DotSama events, it's pretty much the same people. We see the same people at all the events, right? So what are we really doing? We're just coming into a conference and we're going to a party, but then it's all the same people, so why don't we just have that conversation at the conference kind of thing? So what we did is we partnered with the Pizza Down and a couple other Ethereum-based projects. Had a really great turnout, about, I don't know, we had 800-ish people, I think, and only about 150, 200 were from the DotSama ecosystem. So there was a lot of interaction with other ecosystems that we found that was really valuable. Got a lot of really good feedback from teams saying, this was great. We got to interact with teams outside of DotSama. There's some Ninja Turtles there, which were part of the Pizza DAO. The Pizza DAO is actually providing pizza for tonight's Polkahaus event. So that'll be kind of cool. We've also become kind of matchmakers for the DotSama ecosystem. We find it interesting that there's no central kind of place where project founders come together and can talk to one another, and we've kind of become that, by happen chance, I guess. The picture you see on your left is actually Kenny speaking at a Solana event. We have friends in other ecosystems that wanted to do stuff with us, and we said, hey, get us a slot for a DotSama speaker at a Solana event. So this is Kenny's talking about Manta at a Solana Hacker House event, which was in New York City, which was really interesting, because as soon as his talk ended, a flood of people came up to him to ask him, what is this thing, Manta, what's this Polkadot thing? Like, they don't know about it, so we need to start making that outreach to other ecosystems. The other picture is Moonbeam put on an event in San Francisco, and they came to Polkahaus. They said, can you give us some suggestions of people in San Francisco that can come and speak with us? And so, we connected them to Oak and Robonomics, and from what I hear, it was an excellent event. The last thing we've kind of done, and this is where David will come on, and we've done a little bit of project incubation. Projects come on, they talk to us, and we give them ideas. One of those is Sumi. David's going to talk a little bit about it, but I think it's one of those projects that is needed in the ecosystem to, allow for more interaction between projects. So with that, I'll introduce David here to just talk briefly about Sumi.
Hey, I'm David. Kind of entrepreneur most of my life. Started dial-up internet back in the day and did a lot with video streaming. Previously worked at Consensus and built some data marketplaces and token research on Ethereum, that kind of jazz. I got fascinated with this toolbox called Substrate like a year ago and started playing around with it and trying to come up with something to build. Chatted with some people at Parity, and they were like, what do you got? And I was thinking communication is really limited today. It's so centralized, and came up with this idea. I applied for a Web3 grant, had no name, just kind of made up a random Yibenchen, Chinese sounded name, and kind of started from there. I hit Alex up with the idea. I was trying to see if it was just a toy I was building or if it was something serious. And got a lot of great feedback from like Alex and D1 Ventures and some others. So this is kind of the first time I've made the project public. We'll be trying to release it this summer. So what is Sumi? So initially we're going to launch essentially like a Gmail type clone. So this is going to be decentralized messaging on top of a parachain. So we have this thing called Sumi Notes, which is kind of like an email itself. The note, is a blockchain protocol, so it's meta protocol wrapping around pointer to decentralized storage. We're encryption first, so it's very secure. All that awesome jazz. It's really great for connecting like all these communities that Alex talks about. Today there's so many wallets out there. Projects want to message them and give them updates. Users don't want to use Gmail. All that kind of typical jazz. We've got a lot of interesting features that we're working on. That's been cool feedback from others. There's the huge NFT community. They want this like exclusive feeling of like, oh, you can't message me unless you have this specific NFT. And so we can enable all of that with like off-chain workers really easily with Substrate. Substrate's just like so cool to be able to work with versus a lot of other blockchain projects I've worked with. We can do things like feeless transactions. So you spend just a little bit of money and buy a token. Now you can send notes around without having to continuously, cough up money to, interact with your blockchain. A lot of other like cool things we'll kind of experiment with, I think, is like, selling a note. What if you like got a note from Gavin Wood or some like inspirational person, you want to resell that. It's a little bit of a Twitter kind of inspiration. So we're working on like kind of like a multi-sig, so you can like have multiple receivers of a note. One of the things we like with Substrate, it was really easy to not only support like the Substrate SS58 wallets, but we can also support Ethereum, Bitcoin wallets. We're going to add support for like Solana, Avalanche. So this parachain essentially can act as like a decentralized messenger for all blockchain wallets out there. I'm going to play around with like our UI and try to sell some like cool NFTs, for like your profile picture, how you can set that with Gmail and that kind of cool stuff. Maybe the backdrop. Initially, for the storage, I'm just plugging IPFS in because I'm so familiar with it. But we're going to integrate with like Crust and Filecoin and pretty much anyone else that wants to plug into this thing. So really excited to launch this. We're going to try to target like a parachain this summer. That's kind of it. Yeah, super excited.
Well, cool. Yeah, so that's just one of the things that just popped up organically inside Polkahaus that we just kind of help incubate and push along. And this question that we have here, World Tour, like events like this are needed in the ecosystem. We should really think about how we grow this ecosystem. I think it's time. We've heard, inside of Polkahaus, in the ecosystem, what's going on with the marketing. If we think about this, it really wasn't poorly done in my own personal opinion, right? If we think of 6 months back, and people were complaining about marketing in Polkadot, there was really nothing to market, right? Even there were some parachains that had won slots on Kusama, but they still hadn't, built out much, and there wasn't really much happening. So there really wasn't much to market. But now there are a slew of parachains doing actually really interesting things. And so we think now is the time. We think now we should be doing more events like this, incorporating other ecosystems so that they can see what they can do on Substrate. We hear time and again from other ecosystem developers that the Substrate stack is elegantly put together. I don't have to tell most of the people in this room, but there are a lot of benefits to Substrate. There are a lot of benefits to the Polkadot ecosystem. Those that have been in blockchain for a while, I think we can all recognize that the Polkadot ecosystem is very collaborative, whereas in other ecosystems you don't really see that. So let's keep trying to push that forward, keep bringing up new ideas. We're going to keep going. Polkahaus is just entirely a volunteer effort. We just kind of do it for fun. We like what we're doing. We really want to see everyone at the party tonight. If you didn't get a code, let me know. We'll definitely get you guys in. We want this to be inclusive. We want everyone to be a part of this, and let's keep it all going. Thanks for your attention, guys. We'll see you later tonight. Enjoy lunch.